Hello, and welcome to today's show on Rich Simple Human, and I'm on my own. This is exciting because I get to say whatever I like. And if you've dialed in, you will have seen the title to this podcast is truly ridiculous. Does menopause impact high performers more? What an absolute load of nonsense. So if you have tuned in, I hope you're really interested in what I'm about to say. The reality is, menopause affects everybody differently, which is why it's such a controversial topic. And I'm sitting down to record this just after the headlines have hit, which say 3 in 4 women unaware menopause can trigger new mental illness, poll finds. They're terrifying headlines, aren't they? Nearly 3/4 of UK women do not know menopause can trigger a new mental illness. Well, of course, if we weaponise that against women, we say menopause causes mental illness, and of course it doesn't. In the same way that high performers don't suffer from menopause more than anybody else performing at any other level, because it simply doesn't work like that. But the bit I am interested in talking to you about today is how you can use biometric data to improve your awareness of what's going on and look for clues. Isn't that clever? So stay listening. If you're wearing a Wheat Band, an Oura Ring, or tracking your HRV, however you're doing it, this one is for you. And I'm going to talk about the nervous system, about how menopause can affect it, how your stress and resilience can change, and what I see happening in my clients. Now, I'm really lucky to coach lots of men, but I've also coached lots of women, and I am a woman, and I'm wearing a Wheat Band, and I'm having the menopause. Wow! Isn't that great? Well, that's normal, isn't it? Because that's what happens when we get older. In the same way that we hope our children will go through puberty, and in the same way we know we will all definitely die, unless you're Jesus. But that's another conversation for another time. So stay listening to what I'm going to say about how you could improve your menopause experience using biometric data. Why am I talking about this? Because everybody else is. And of course, I'm a great one to jump on the bandwagon for search engine optimization. No, I'm not. I'm joking. I really do want to talk to you about this because it's really important. And I do see some very strange conversations going on. And I also see people really desperate, especially in places where they can't get HRT, for HRT, sometimes without looking at the bigger picture. And why aren't they looking at the bigger picture? Because they simply haven't been exposed to some of the information. So I'm going to come back to the basics that I always nag my clients about: eating, sleeping, breathing, moving, praying, and meditating. Who knew you should be doing those things every day? And you should also be thinking about your purpose. And when we talk about this, we're not talking about some sort of longevity biohacking experience. We're talking about just being really aware of the fact that I did eat properly, sleep properly, move properly, breathe properly, and spend some time doing some meditation or journaling today. And for those people that say, I do my meditation when I'm running, no, you don't. Because you're meditating when your heart rate variability is higher, the gaps between your heart rate is bigger, and your body is in rest and digest. That, according to Dr. Lisa Miller, is where we are connected to the spiritual. So I'm going to invite you to think about whether you've done that in the next week. Could you do it? Could you spend 3 minutes being still, consciously slowing down your breath, slowing down your heart rate, and allowing yourself to experience what it means to be still? And why bother? Well, that's where the magic happens. Let me tell you, I've been practicing it for years. And when I do it properly, everything changes. And when I don't, it's a disaster. So it's a daily practice. Let's talk more about using the Wheat Band during menopause. So what happens when we go through hormonal changes? Well, our sleep goes a bit wibbly wobbly. Our body starts changing. Our metabolism shifts. And there's lots of other things going on in the body that you can spot if you are tracking your data. Why is that interesting? Because it's going to give you a window into what's really going on. I am also going to talk a lot about sleep in this episode. So if you are a human being and you sleep, you might want to stay listening as well, even if you're not having the menopause. There's something about our sleep that shifts dramatically, and we can look to evolutionary psychology for this. So we can imagine that we're in a cave, in a tribe. The young people are staying up late and partying to keep an eye out. The older people are going to bed earlier and waking up earlier as those young people go to bed. And the really old people need less sleep at night because they're not moving as much during the day. Of course, the babies are doing all sorts of crazy things, but we're designed to be keeping an eye out in our tribal scenario. So we all have these different sleeping patterns. The circadian rhythm changes as we get older. Now, lots of people might now be thinking, well, I know lots about that, and actually we used to get up in the night to work. Well, yes, that is true. Research shows. that people were working in a different pattern depending on the harvest, depending on the sunlight, depending on the heat where they were living, etc. But just think about it. As you get older, you're probably going to bed earlier and waking earlier. Now, that's also got something to do with your hormones, but it's also your evolutionary biology. So if that's happening to you and you're waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning, that's great. That does mean you're going to need to go to bed earlier, and it might mean you need to take a rest in the afternoon. For those people that don't rest in the afternoon, that's a hard time, isn't it? That post-lunchtime slump is an incredibly difficult time to navigate in my experience. And what I would suggest is even 5 minutes of quiet time somewhere doing a meditation, a breathing exercise, or an audio of some kind, especially sophrology, because that's my method of choice, will make a massive difference to your energy levels. It's a bit like being stuck on the M25 in your car with the engine running. At some point, it's really a very good idea to turn it off, have a park up, take a break, and then get back in. If you had a brand new Ferrari, you wouldn't leave it running in the garage with the accelerator pedal pressed down. You turn it off so it could go to sleep. And that's why good quality sleep and resting during the day is so important. You can't run from 6 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, jump into bed and then expect to go straight to sleep. It just doesn't work that way. So we've started talking about sleep, and the thing that we see with the Whoop Band, the Oura Ring, and all the other devices are duration of sleep, what time you go to sleep, what time you wake up. We also see how much deep sleep you're having. Often we track nighttime temperature. Are you too hot or too cold? And when are you actually waking up? What's really going on? When is your deep sleep? Do these look like patterns and cycles? Are they proper REM cycles, 3 to 5 a night? Or are you all over the place and there's too much going on, and what do we think might be happening? This is so personal, which is why, of course, high performers aren't affected more by menopause than anybody else. Everybody's affected differently. So when we look at the data, and if you are now thinking, well, I'm going to look at my data and do what Lindsey's saying, it's really interesting to notice what time you're actually going to sleep. Let me give you an example. Going to sleep at 10, waking up at 3, that's a complete pain. What's going on? Who knows? Going to bed, not going to sleep till 1, waking up at 4. Okay, that's a different scenario. What's happening there? Going to bed at midnight, waking up at 2, then going back to sleep, and then not being able to get up in the morning. A whole other catalogue of things going on. And of course, those devices will all show you when you've got deep sleep, when you've got REM sleep, when you've got light sleep, and when you are awake. So what might be happening? What's the most common thing I see going on, and what have I experienced myself? Well, what I see happening a lot of the time is people haven't eaten enough protein and fibre during the day. They then have their dinner, and if it was a carb-heavy meal, or they are a sit on the sofa and eat chocolate at night person, or drink wine, maybe, if you're one of those, when you go to bed, normally, if I've attached a continuous glucose monitor to you as well, you will see that your blood glucose is high. What then happens is, as that drops after you've gone to sleep, you go to sleep quickly, but you will then wake up again in the night. And the exact mechanics of that, I'm not going to say it here because I might get it wrong, but it's something about the pancreas, the blood sugar glucose, or the glucose levels dropping, and then some adrenaline and some cortisol kicking in. But please don't quote me on that because I'm not reading it off a piece of paper, but it wakes you up. So then you're awake. Well, then, of course, as soon as you're awake, you're beginning to think about what you didn't process mentally in the day. So your brain starts doing its filing, and then you can't go back to sleep. If you had done a bit of meditation or breathing during the day, your brain can do the processing it needs. If you ever look at a brainwaves chart, you will see that the alpha brainwaves are in the middle, stage just before you go to sleep, and then you've got high activity brainwaves at the top. If you're in that high activity all day, your brain is not doing the filing properly. It's just running. So we have to drop down to do the filing. Now, we don't really want to do all that filing at night, because what we really want to do at night is have that lovely REM sleep where we're dreaming, because this is where your subconscious is talking to, or your higher power, or God, or whatever it is you want to attach your beliefs to. And this is incredibly powerful. In fact, I've got a lovely friend coming on the podcast soon to talk about dream interpretation, because this is fundamental in so many different faiths in our own lives. And I think you're going to get really, really excited when you see how much this can help you in life, especially with your anxiety and your focus and mental clarity, understanding your dreams, using that data filing that's happening to really leverage your intuition and your wisdom, especially as you get older. We also know that people are beginning to have these very crazy spiritual experiences, whether they've been taking ayahuasca, or they're doing magic mushrooms, or whether they're just having dreams and visions and then telling us about it. We know that we are in deep spiritual times, which I'm very excited about, because that does lead us to thinking about, okay, what's bigger than us out there in the world? And it raises the question of faith. One of my favourite topics to talk to anybody about, of course, because otherwise you're the biggest thing in the world. Wouldn't that be a disaster if you really were? You are the most influential, biggest thing in the world, and you are almighty and all powerful. Oh dear, that's a rather large responsibility that I don't want to take. Thank you very much. I'd rather have a higher power in here. So let's think about that another time. Sleep is really, really important. REM sleep's important for dreaming, intuition, and wisdom. Deep sleep is absolutely essential for repair. So if you are getting a little bit chubby around the middle, could it be you're not having the right quality of sleep? When we're in deep sleep, it's the only time where our body is actually totally relaxed. Our mind is off, and in fact, we can't hear anything either. Our senses are all dulled down and we're doing deep repair work. If you're aging really quickly, maybe you're not getting enough deep sleep. Have you thought of that? Much, much cheaper than a facelift. Just get your sleep sorted out. I see this a lot as we get into our 50s and people are aging quick. I think, wonder what's going on. And when you talk to them, it's normally because they're not eating or sleeping properly. So let's go back to food and how it impacts your sleep. Chocolate or loads and loads of carbs before you go to bed will not help you. But not enough food won't help you either. So if you like a bit of fasting or you're finishing your dinner at 5, but they're not going to bed until midnight, you could be under fueling. If you are an athlete, like I am, so I claim to be anyway, and I haven't eaten enough, I will wake up in the night. Even if I'm not hungry, my body is running out of fuel. And I'm not fat adapted, as we were in our ancestral days, so my body doesn't go to the fat stores for food, it just waits for more glucose normally. So I will then wake up hungry. That's a horrible, horrible feeling. Remember, you need protein for repair, you need fibre for the way that your system is working, and you also need some carbohydrates as well. I think most people I speak to seem to be low on protein. I don't know why. Maybe we just don't eat enough meat. But I do need to remind you that if you look on I think it's the World Health Organization, they do recommend 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, I believe. Do check that. But that is an important measure. Are you actually getting that much? And then somebody says, well, I had 2 eggs for breakfast, a chicken breast for lunch, and a tiny piece of salmon for dinner. I don't think you're hitting your protein targets. Put it into Chat GPT or AI because it will tell you exactly what's going on. So sleep. Let's talk about body temperature, shall we? Too hot, too cold. Our dials are going all over the place in menopause because our hormones are changing. But are they changing and being impacted by our glucose levels? Or is it really that you need HRT, or is it a combination? Or is the bedroom just too hot? Who knows? But when you look at your sleep, you can begin to see what's going on, what is actually happening. And, of course, if you do then decide to take HRT, you can start seeing if it's got better. Has my sleep quality actually improved? Or am I still chugging a litre of wine before I go to bed and then wondering why I'm having hot sweats? There's a clue in that, isn't there? Not that there's any critique here of people who like a litre of wine before bed, but it won't help your menopause symptoms. Neither will being overweight. If your body is carrying extra weight, and you've all got access to your BMI charts, and if your BMI is above the recommended percentage, then that will also be impacting. So should you be taking HRT at the same time? Of course, it's a personal decision, but it's just worth taking agency and being aware of what's actually going on. Hot flushes, alcohol, body temperature, sleep. Let's talk about inflammation. One of my favourite tests to have people do is a CRP test, C-reactive protein test. This is a very simple one that you can buy online. You take your bloods at home. Finger prick test. It shows the amount of inflammation in the body. Why do we not want inflammation in the body? Because it causes really awful problems. It causes inflammatory diseases, it contributes to heart health, and it's a generally unpleasant environment for our body to be in. So you really do want to be thinking about your levels of inflammation. What causes inflammation? A gazillion things. And of course, there are other people out there who will have inflammatory diseases that aren't being caused by something they've done behaviourally. Behaviourally. But if you are showing signs of high inflammation, it would be a great idea to try a low inflammatory diet. Again, AI is your friend. What could you be eating that is creating that inflammation? Could it be as simple as dairy? Could it be something else? Well, you'll never know unless you've got something to track it against. So when people say, I don't eat certain things, I say, how do you know? What tests have you had done? The CRP test is an absolutely brilliant one for letting you know if you are inflamed, if you have got inflammation in your body. And we can also talk about leaky gut. And there are a million tests out there because people want to sell you stuff. So if you're having a massive panel of testing done by anybody, be prepared for them to try and find something wrong with you that they can sell you a solution for. And of course, lifestyle isn't always a great solution. Eat, sleep, breathe and move. It should be free. So if we do think about those ourselves, that's where we have agency. It's really, really important. I'm now going to talk about caffeine. We've covered off alcohol, we've talked about late meals and high sugar, but caffeine after midday won't help your body at all. Caffeine has a half-life and it doesn't just disappear, it messes up all sorts of different processes in the body. And I'm a great one for waking up early in the morning and thinking, oh, I'll have a lovely cup of coffee whilst it's getting light outside, try and stay off my phone. And then I'll have another cup of coffee and then I'll have another one. Well, that's probably not going to help my sleep. So if your sleep isn't great and you're still drinking coffee, or Diet Coke, can I make a suggestion that you try and reduce it? And of course, you'll see again, if you're using a monitor, a wearable tracker, you'll see the impact on your sleep. You'll also see how fit you are. So if you are wearing a data tracker and your resting heart rate is higher than the average, and again, you can check this on the internet, you're not as fit as you think you are cardiovascularly. Normally, of course, there could be a problem here with other heart issues, and that's not what we're talking about. But if you do have a higher heart rate, than the average fit person, you might want to consider doing a little bit more cardiovascular exercise because that will bring that down. Why is that important? Because it will help your metabolism. It will also help alleviate the cortisol in your body, and it will help you find some relief from that sort of mental chatter. So exercise is important. What also happens, you athletes out there, is that people overtrain. I see this constantly with women and men on the go who are overtraining and they're under-recovered. So basically, you're non-functional overreaching every time you go to the gym. If your heart rate variability isn't recovering after a heavy session, you're not recovering very quickly. So what's happening? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough protein? Are you drinking enough water? Are you recovering enough to get your resting heart rate back to its regular space, get your HRV back up, and then you can train again? If you're not, you're training very, very fatigued, and that's not a great idea permanently. It isn't going to make your body build muscle. You're not going to improve cardiovascular fitness. Your resting heart rate won't go down. You're not going to be thin and looking like Cindy Crawford at 55. So I'm sorry to say, but if you are watching your data and you train and you don't see the bounce back or that recovery 48 hours afterwards, you're overtraining. So if you're going out and doing crazy cardio, back off and go and do some weights, back off and go and do some Pilates, mix it up a little bit and see if you can find that sweet spot so you're not non-functional overreaching. Now, let's talk about breathing. Why is it so important? Well, guess what? That oxygen that you need that comes in through your breath is really important for every single part of your body. And I really like to encourage people to breathe properly, putting their hands on their rib cage and beginning to feel like you're breathing deeply and fully. In fact, even just a minute of this a day is going to help you. And if you have got a wearable tracker, you can watch the effect this has on your resting heart rate. So if you click on the button that says live activity in the Whoop, or I don't know where it is in Oura, you can watch your resting heart rate coming down in real time. So you can begin to feel the levers of the nervous system. You begin to feel the fact that you can come out of fight or flight and into rest and digest just by breathing more slowly. Your heart rate's coming down, your resting heart rate is dropping, and of course then your heart rate variability is going up. The gaps between the heartbeats are increasing because you're slowing the heart down. This is where consciousness lives. I love this part of sophrology. We're learning to go into that state of awareness. It's amazing. And when you see it on a tracker, it really is a buzz because you can actually watch how clever you can be at doing it. And when you get into the upper levels of sophrology and we begin to start thinking about our noises and our vibrations, then you can use that. The results truly are outstanding. So enjoy that. So just if you've got a tracker on and you're wearing one, in fact, as so many people are now, even if it's just a fashion accessory, wouldn't it be more fun to watch the data? And breathing is going to improve your menopause experience because your respiratory rate will be coming down, you'll be oxygenating the body, you are releasing toxins, you are relaxing, your sleep will be improving. Do I need to say any more? Why would you not do that? It's just absolutely amazing. So breathing. And there's so many different breathing exercises you can do. I just like one in, one out, and then out through the mouth, thinking about how many times you've breathed in a minute. Perhaps if you're watching a stopwatch, use your heart rate so you can see that coming down, or breathe in for 7, out for 11, breathe in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5, whatever suits you. Find something that you love, or book a session with me and I'll tell you what I think works best for you with your very busy lifestyle. Because guess what? Everybody's experience is different because we are humans and we are unique. You have a unique set of gifts and talents to give away to the world, and there is your purpose. But we give away from overflow and not from scarcity. So how do you do that? Well, Love your neighbour as yourself. You love yourself first. You've got to do this work for yourself first. Love yourself, nurture yourself, care for yourself, get yourself into a great position. So then you're blessed with more and you're giving from abundance and overflow, serving from this extra, not from a lack, which will basically fatigue you and create burnout. That was simple, wasn't it? I should have bottled that and sold it. Last thing I need to be talking to you about today is pattern recognition, agency and your real superpower. When you begin to see the patterns, guess what? You change, because using the data creates accountability. And if you do tell yourself fibs, then you might tell fibs to everybody else. But if you can't keep your promises to yourself, how reliable are you? When you look at your data and you think, right, that didn't go so well, I know what I need to do differently, then you can change it. You can't manage what you can't measure. Would you run your business without knowing what your numbers are? Would you run your household budget without knowing how much money you've got to spend? No, but we run our energy without being aware of what's in the tank and what's not. So let's have a look at our energy. And I always say there are 6 dimensions to our energy: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, and financial. Yes, money is an energy as well. There are 6 things we need to be balancing here. That is not easy, but I think I've cracked the code. So let me know if you're interested in me telling you what I found. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, and financial. They are our energy bodies. That's how we run our systems. And when we begin to align all of those together and get the balance right, the magic happens. So pattern recognition: what is going on with your sleep? What's going on with your food? What's happening with your HRV? What does your data look like? I've got some friends who have had absolutely transformational experiences by watching their data and then being able to work out, okay, I did this, this is the effect. Then I did that and this is what happened. They're playing the system. They're trying to work out, okay, here's my body. What can I do differently to get results? This is why I think you probably will have heard that Formula One and the Tour de France every year has got faster and faster and faster, because we're getting better and better, not only with technology, but the humans behind it. We're becoming better at visualizing, getting better with our nutrition. We're getting better at managing the data we've got with technology to improve ourselves from a human perspective. And if anybody now is thinking longevity is wonderful, but without the basics, you're basically just building on foundations that will crumble. So if you are putting various longevity things into your body, or doing various exciting treatments like the hyperbaric oxygen chamber or injectables or whatever these new drips are, if you haven't got your sleeping, your eating, your breathing, your moving, and your meditation and prayer sorted, then you're wasting your money. But don't tell anybody I said that. If you're still listening, we're 24 minutes in. So I hope that it's just my fans that are staying tuned and not somebody who's going to send me a nasty email saying you're talking a load of nonsense. Actually, if you do want to, I'm more than happy to do that. In fact, you could come on the podcast and we could debate it. Actually, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? A debate channel. Lindsey says. I've got a friend who'd love that. If you fancy me doing that, let me know. I'd love any feedback. And by the way, there are 4,000 of you listening and only 400 of you on the mailing list. So please go to richsimplehuman.com or lindseyfrancis.co.uk or wherever you find me on LinkedIn, etc., and sign up for the newsletter, because I will be sharing all of these exciting things on there with you, because I love writing stuff down. I love thinking about how this works. And we are about to go into some shows on dreams and also the concept of exquisite listening. Watch how that changes your relationships when you learn to be an exquisite listener. Doesn't that sound beautiful? I love stuff like that. Okay, final point here is data creates agency instead of confusion, but there is a danger of over-tracking here. And I know there are a number of you that have taken off your Oura Rings because you weren't watching the data or it was stressing you out even more. It's really, really unhelpful to have a tracker on and not to know what to do with it. It's a bit like me giving you a kettle and you know how to boil water, but then you don't know what to do with the water. It's a complete and utter waste of time. So you can end up with too much data creating anxiety or making you very controlling and trying to create this perfect scenario. Well, the reality is there is no perfect scenario. There's just you, and we're all different. So nobody's perfect. We simply couldn't be, which is where we started the show. Do high performers suffer more greatly from menopause? No, we all suffer differently, and that is the point. So what am I going to end with today? I'm going to end with wearables like Oura and Whoop don't fix the menopause, but they do help you understand your physiology and understand what's going on and allow you to track what you're doing and what is making a difference and what isn't. If you would like to know more, I love working one-to-one. I love working with groups. I love keynote speaking and I love doing workshops. So all of these things are things I love talking about. I also love talking about how people spend their money because that's also super revealing. But today was about how you spend your energy and how you can use biometric data to track that. So until next time, please sign up for the newsletter. Please like, share and subscribe, of course, otherwise it doesn't grow, and I love doing this. And if there's any questions, please reach out, mainly on LinkedIn, Lindsey Francis, and I will see you next time.